You probably don't have a problem playing video games or browsing social media on your phone. In fact, I have no doubt you could sit in front of a screen and do both of those activities for 2 hours or even longer without breaking your concentration. But what about half an hour of studying? Oof, that might be too hard. How about working on your side business for another hour? Even though you logically know that studying, exercise, building a business or something equally productive will bring more benefits in the long run, you still prefer watching TV, playing video games, and scrolling through social media. One might argue that it's obvious why. One activity is easy and doesn't require much effort, while the other activity is difficult and requires it to apply yourself. But some people seem to have problems studying, exercising, or working on their side projects regularly. Which begs the question, why are some people more motivated to tackle difficult things? And is there a way to make doing difficult things easy? To answer this question, we need to look at this brain neurotransmitter, dopamine. Dopamine is often considered a pleasure molecule. But that's not quite what it does. Dopamine is what makes us desire things. And it's a desire that gives us the motivation to get up and do stuff. If you're not sure how powerful dopamine is, let me introduce you to a few experiments neuroscientists did on rats. The researchers implanted electrodes in the brains of rats. Whenever the rats pulled a lever, the researchers stimulated the rat's reward system in the brain. The result was that the rats developed a craving so strong they kept pulling the lever, over and over for hours. The rats would refuse to eat or even sleep. They would just keep pressing the lever until they would drop from exhaustion. But then the process was reversed. The researchers blocked the release of dopamine in the brain's reward center. As a result, rats became so lethargic that even getting up to get a drink of water was not worth the effort. They wouldn't eat, they didn't want to mate. They didn't crave anything at all. You could say that the rats lost all will to live. However, if the food was placed directly in their mouths, the rats would still eat and enjoy the food. They just didn't have the motivation to get up and do it themselves. You would think that it's thirst or hunger that motivates us to get food or water. But there's also dopamine that plays a key role here. Those rat experiments might be extreme cases. But you can see similar effects dopamine has on humans and in our daily lives. In fact, your brain develops priorities in large part based on how much dopamine it's expecting to get. If an activity releases too little dopamine, you won't have the motivation to do it. But if an activity releases a lot of dopamine, you will be motivated to repeat it, over and over. So which behaviors release more dopamine? Any activity where you anticipate there's a potential reward releases it. But if you know there are no rewards with the behaviors, your brain won't release it. For example, before you eat comfort food, your brain releases dopamine because you anticipate that the food will make you feel good. Even if it actually makes you feel worse. That's because your brain doesn't even care if the high dopamine activity is damaging to you. It's just one more of it. A stereotypical example would be someone who's a drug addict. He knows that what he's doing is not good for him. But all he wants is to get more of that drug. Besides getting you high, cocaine, heroin releases unnatural amounts of dopamine, which in turn makes you crave them even more.
Of course, it has to be noted that nearly everything releases some amount of dopamine. Even drinking water you're thirsty does. But the highest dopamine release happens when you get a reward randomly. One such example is playing on a slot machine in a casino. Even if you've only been losing money until that point, you eventually expect to get a bigger reward. You just don't know when it could happen. And in today's digital society, we are flooding our brains with unnaturally high amounts of dopamine on a daily basis, even if we don't know it. Some examples of high dopamine behaviors include scrolling through social media websites, playing video games, watching movies, etc. We anticipate some sort of reward with each one of those behaviors. That's why we're constantly checking our phones. We expect to see a text message or some other notification. And we hope that eventually, we're going to receive it. We're becoming like those rats pulling the lever, trying to get new dopamine hit. And you might think, oh so what? It's not like harming me in any way. But you would be wrong.